Hello and welcome to Antimatters, a longer video reflecting back on this season and previous ones today. I will talk about what I've learned, mostly through mistakes, and what I feel has gone right. Let's wind it back about 5 years. This is my Lasius niger colony here. They are my original colony and I started them with about 10 workers. By this time they were already about 2 or 3 years old. They really got me into ant keeping, as I'd always been curious about these tiny ladies. As a super hardy species, I'd put them through hell and they never seemed to care. There wasn't much about on ant care at the time, so their diet was pretty crazy. Anyway, roll forward to last winter. I moved them into the porch to hibernate. During a long extended cold period, I think the frost got them. I was pretty pissed at myself for messing up so bad, and I still am, to be honest, but 100% lesson learned. Be careful where you hibernate your ants, and during extended sub-zero temperatures outside, move them to a safe area, even if it disturbs them. So my ruberas got the tank. I learned a lot about natural setups this year. Although the old girls had soil in it, it was relatively sterile. Just ants and whatever spiders stupidly underestimated the ants' ability to eat them. I added a few woodlice and some moss, which I believe had a few springtails in it. I didn't really know what they were at the time, so I didn't know they'd actually got in. This tank has flourished and is the best to watch. If you're going to make a natural setup, isopods and springtails are a must. Worth checking out Antscape's YouTube channel, as he knows loads about this stuff, and his videos have really helped me a lot. June rocked around and I went and checked on some of the wild ant hotspots I know. I definitely recommend monitoring your local wild ants. One, it's a great opportunity to see their natural behaviour and habitat. Two, it's pretty relaxing ant hunting. Onto the flavus. So, in my head, these ants haven't grown all season. But looking back on this video, I can see they certainly have grown. If you have a camera, take a picture of your ants every so often. It's zero effort, but looking back, it's extremely rewarding to see before and afters, and they're good references in case something goes wrong. Onto the Lasius nigers. A wise man once said, "Don't count your chickens before they hatch." It's probably sound advice.
And there's a nice big pile of cocoons as well that are ready to hatch, which should mean that I'll probably have about 10 by the end of next month.
With slow growing species, I'm at the stage now where another wise man's saying applies. Keep your expectations low to avoid disappointment. I also moved my small Fedole colony in June into a much too large nest. That was a big mistake. At the time I had a new prototype ant nest burning a hole in my pocket and a Fedole colony just about ready to move into a small late stage founding nest. 1 + 1 = none though. My experiment was a failure and I could have easily avoided it with a little more common sense and stricter control methods to prevent deaths. All future experiments from that point forward have been done with a lot more monitoring of the ants, and the experiment ends as soon as any negatives to the ants are spotted. It's a lot more chilled now too, as there's no pressure to finish an experiment at any cost or it's a failure. Failing halfway through can yield just as much information if measured correctly, maybe even more, as you can start your next experiment sooner. At this point, I think I've written off my Solenopsis typhoona colony. Keeping them normally worked out great, until the fish tank experiment. I thought they died, so I dug them out after a few weeks of no sign of life. After I dug them out, I found they were doing fine, but I'd now ruined their nest. Screw up number 1. When it couldn't get worse, I decided to put these girls into my big tank. I've barely ever seen them since, and the ruberas these ants were supposed to steal off have likely fought them. I don't know, but feel they're likely dead. At the time, I don't feel this was a mistake, as it was freezer or that, but the root of the troubles was putting microspecies in soil. I definitely wouldn't recommend putting microspecies in soil again. My grandest experiment this year was the fish tank. Overall, this was an epic success. apart from the Solenopsis typhoon moving into the soil. The more relaxed experiment method meant no ants were harmed during this exploration. The idea of warming nests with a hot bath and combining an aquarium and formicarium became a runaway train of an idea, and I just had to follow it. Hell of a ride though, and learned a lot. There's definitely a lot of potential in combining them. I ended this experiment a few weeks ago when I relocated the rubras that had happily made it home. Next season I will likely repeat something similar, as I've already got ideas for an anchored floating nest. Time will tell. Never be afraid to try out new nest plans and ideas though. So from August onwards, everything's been running really smooth and positively, except it's not.
And there's a nice big pile of cocoons as well that are ready to hatch, which should mean that I'll probably have about 10 by the end of next month.
I'm only at 4 workers. I've done the textbook error and forgotten the basics. Well, more they've become routine now. When I first started, the unknown worry made me put a lot more care and attention into them. They're doing fine now, don't get me wrong, and then they always have fresh food and water. They're being cared for like 90% at least of care guides would say is ideal. What I'm trying to get at is the more care and attention you put into your ants, the better they'll grow. You can be a sufficient keeper without it, but if you want to go beyond sufficient ant keeping, there's no better way than truly getting to know your ants. Their behaviours, food preferences, favourite temperatures. No one else can tell you what their favourites are because all ants are different. You just gotta pay attention. That's about it really on useful things I've learned this year that apply to all ants. Quickfire, new tank, winning. New messer nest, winning. Letting spiders live, winning. 2021 ant season, winning. I hope this video helps someone. If it raises more questions than it answers, feel free to reach out in the comments. Also, I feel it's worth adding, this season I started this channel. It's been great fun, and being able to look back on my ants has been enough payoff for me. The opportunity to share my ants and maybe help someone in the same shoes I was in a few years back, as well, not make the same mistakes, is a great motivator. It's been a real pleasure though, and thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this season update.